This episode of the WP Minute is brought to you by OmniSend. Do you sell stuff online? Then you need to meet OmniSend, the powerful yet refreshingly intuitive email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 for every dollar spent. OmniSend is that good and effective. You probably know the struggles of investing in digital ads with no guarantee it'll bring money back into your pocket. Use OmniSend and you won't have to find creative ways to make your audience notice you. You just talk straight to them. Use OmniSend pop-ups to build a contact list, then send campaigns directly to people who already want to hear from you. Automate everything with OmniSend. Just set it up once, sit back, and watch those sales roll in. If this sounds too good to be true, check it out at omnisend.com. Visit omnisend.com. Tell them thanks for sponsoring the WP Minute. Roger Williams, welcome to the WP Minute.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
There's a Roger Williams zoo about 20 minutes from me that I bring my kids to all along. You ever get confused as the Roger Williams?
You know, it was a big thing in fifth grade history class when we learned about Rhode Island and the founder of Rhode Island being Roger Williams. And then everybody forgot about it and didn't care. But an interesting fact, one of my aunts a bunch of years ago traced back our lineage. Apparently, I come from Roger Williams.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, I have royalty/celebrity. First time on the WP Minute. It's great.
Another funny story. We went to Rhode Island once and we got carded at a bar. And I tried to be kind of like, hey, kind of cool name, right? Do I get like a free drink? And yeah, just nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. The guy's like, no.
Yeah,
no.
They're sick of that joke. They are sick of that joke. That's fantastic. So you find yourself these days at Kinsta. We're going to talk about what you do at Kinsta because we sort of share similar titles to my day job at Gravity Forms. But yep. I was just on your show/Kinsta show. You were talking about you had some previous experience with video editing and creating other content. Take me back. Was that what you did before you got this role at Kinsta? You were running your own stuff, working for other folks. What did that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got a storied career that there's no straight path. I started in hosting. We moved into selling CDN for a little while back when you had to actually like call somebody and get CDN. And then I got burnt out of corporate and I started building websites for people. So this is around 2009, 2010. Started building WordPress sites. And then there was this YouTube thing that was really taking off. And from an SEO perspective, I realized that even if you didn't have a good video up, if you had a decent video up and you did some decent titling and descriptions, you could start ranking at the top of searches on Google immediately. So I had a bunch of clients that I started sitting them down, just doing a video of like, explain what you do. And at the time I worked with like some criminal defense lawyers in Phoenix. And so really savory subjects, running the gamut. And we were just talking about how I really love this new tool Riverside has, and Descript has it too, where after you shoot a video, it creates a transcript and you're able to now just go in and say, oh, get rid of this get rid of this whole sentence. And so back in my day, or God, I sound like an old man, but back in 2009, 2010, right, you had to load everything into Final Cut or Premiere and just sit there and go through and edit out each of those, or try and do another 20 takes and hopefully get something coherent. So that was really kind of where I got started. I did that for about 8 or 9 years and then realized I needed a more consistent paycheck. Doing the client stuff just is a little bit too ups and down for how I was running it. And so I went back into hosting, worked at Pressable for a bit, and then ended up at Kinsta and been here almost 5 years now.
That's oh, did I lose? What happened?
In and out, in and out.
How about now?
You're good. I got you.
Oh, you got me now.
Yes.
Perfect. Jesus. You know, man, technology. We were just ranting about that, and my XLR adapter like became unplugged in the midst of this stuff. YouTube stuff. I remember doing my first YouTube video 2010 for the studio, for my studio. And one of the very first videos that I did was reviewing gravity forms, which where I work today. But I remember we had, at the time he was an intern, but he ended up being full-time as a project manager shortly after. But he was like a musician, so he knew all about like audio and video. And my dad had a whole set of like professional digital photography cameras, but like the video side of it was just throwaway. Like it wasn't a thing back then. They were like, oh, you're not going to record videos with this. So these things would record up to 15 minutes in 1080p. And we were like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? But you had 15 minutes. So if you screwed up and you were running against the clock, you had to get up, take out the SD card, throw another one in. Hopefully the thing doesn't overheat. I mean, the challenges of making YouTube videos back in the day are laughable, compared to today when we have like these cinema rigs in our hands with like an iPhone or a modern Android phone. It's quite amazing.
Agreed. Yeah, I remember when the 5D Mark II craze first hit, right? Yeah. And then, so I didn't have the budget to go for that. So I ended up with a Canon 60D. And that was able to do the 1080p record, not 1080p, I think it was 1080i. So it was still like, not great. But then Magic Lantern came out. And I don't know if you ever started using Magic Lantern at all.
I remember it, but I didn't use it.
Oh my goodness, total game changer. You could now record up to 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And it added just a whole bunch of features in there that half of them you didn't need. But no, you're spot on. It's so much easier now, right? You've just got your iPhone. I just spent the weekend running around Moab shooting video, and the quality of the video that comes out of these phones now is just amazing. So there's no excuses, is what we're trying to say to people.
So one of the things in my previous life, as I mentioned in your session earlier to this, is I worked at Pagely for a little while. I ran the Pagely podcast, but the C-suite team wasn't fully bought in on running a podcast as a valuable thing. Fast forward to today, you're doing this now with Kinsta. I think I might know the obvious advantages. What are the advantages for you and the Kinsta team for creating this kind of more personal content for the audience?
Yeah, I think, there was an interesting, I don't know if it's statistic or takeaway from some study that came out, 6 months, 12 months ago, where they surveyed millennials and Gen Z about their media intake. And one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this was that when they see content that is too polished, too scripted, they immediately suspect something is up. And to me, as a, kind of a scrappy content maker, not a great writer, I'm still not great with my comma placement. That's kind of music to my ears, right? Because I want to make just authentic stuff. I want to have a conversation that has some uhs and ums because I'm trying to figure out what I want to say. And I think that the audience sees that, especially the younger audience, as this research is showing. And I think even older audiences are starting to just get tired of the overproduced, the overpolished, and realizing that a lot of times there might be a different message going on in there. And what I'm trying to do with the Kinsta Talks, I guess, is what we're calling them, is just have some real conversations with people and learn more about how they're working in the space.
Kinsta does a lot for hosting. It's not just WordPress. So you're specifically targeting just WordPress folks right now. Obviously, like community, trust, connection is massive in the WordPress space. Do you ever see yourself venturing out into some of the other technologies that Kinsta can help folks with through their hosting, or is primarily target WordPress right now?
I like you've hit it on the head. We're definitely focused on WordPress right now. It's where most of our business is. It's who I need to talk to the most to figure out what we can do better to help them. And so there's, I think that's what I really love with having these conversations is it's a two-way street. I'm trying to listen more than what I'm trying to, say. As far as other technologies go, I can't really say anything specific right now because I just don't know. But I do like to think that in general, I'm focused on the open source software world as it is. And we're seeing components of, you've got like headless sites, right, where they're being built, the front ends in React. And so at least being aware of that, and we have customers who are using our WordPress on the back end, and they're using some of our other technologies for the front end. So those things are happening, and I'm sure at some point I'll expand into that. But as far as a timeline goes, I have no idea right now.
Owning, amplifying, enhancing one's personal brand is oh so important these days, not just from like the broader business perspective, but what we see going on with WordPress and this tug of war of ownership and democratizing not only publishing but the building of WordPress, the software as it stands. I often see far too much that I want to admit to in my Twitter timeline and other places around the web of freelance product makers who just like, I've got this plugin, please buy it. And they even say things like, I'm even ashamed to ask for people to buy it. And it's like, you're sitting on this mountain of content opportunities, right? To fire up either, video or audio, because I'm actually more of like an audio purist than I am a video purist. You can start a podcast, freely distributable, RSS, just like WordPress. That's why I love the two spaces because of that open distribution. But people should start doing this yesterday. And if you're hearing this, you should be doing it right now. So absolutely. I'm curious, like, if you've seen this before in the WordPress space, if so, what either opportunities should people be looking for? Where could they start that's not so overwhelming? Because I fully agree for some of them, it is emotionally overwhelming, not just like the tech side of it, but like, oh my God, I have to talk and put myself out there. So any advice for those types of folks?
Yeah, I think simplify, right? Even as simple as it is to get a podcast going on WordPress, there is still some complication in there. And so, personally, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. The reason I like LinkedIn is because everybody that's going to LinkedIn is going there for a purpose, right? It's business, whether they're looking for a job or they're looking to sell or whatever. So you've already got an audience that is interested in hearing a sales pitch, whether, they like it or not. I mean, that's what LinkedIn is. And you've got the opportunity to upload audio and video there. And it's really easy. And so I would say, strip things down. And honestly, this is the approach I'm taking, right? Is at some point, I'm going to post all this stuff to a podcast. But right now, I can just post it on LinkedIn, test it with an audience, get some feedback, see what works, what doesn't. And just start with that. Just start testing and putting stuff out there. And once you get to 50, which I'm still not even at 50 that I've put out yet, once you get to 50, then start thinking about complicating it and what are the things I can add on to make this more difficult for myself. But until you get to 50, you're not going to really figure out what you enjoy talking about.
Yeah. One of the hardest things for me, as somebody who's been doing it for well over a decade, when I joined Gravity Forms, is look, you step into the shoes of a company that's been around forever, celebrating 15 years in business, a milestone a few months ago.
Yeah.
And how does one represent that brand, right? Because I'm not a developer. I don't know all the acronyms. I don't tab space or space bar my code, man. I don't do any of that stuff. How can I represent like the super smart team who's so, well respected in the WordPress space? That was a particular challenge for me, is like, am I good enough to represent this brand? Any particular challenges you faced or still face today as sort of being the face of Kinsta? You don't have to leave. You can stick around and let us know.
For those on the audio version, I was kind of cowering a little bit there. This is huge. The imposter syndrome is very real, especially when it's with a team like Kinsta. We've got so many A hitters on that are making things work, whether it's engineering, design, development, support, sales. It's an all-star team. And So I keep that in mind, and at times that can be paralyzing, right? Don't get me wrong, like of worrying about if I'm going to say the right thing or the wrong thing. What's really helped me is the executive team at Kinsta is amazing, and they're very supportive, and they're very vocal with that feedback. And I think for leaders, if anybody's out there and they're trying to get a team going who wants to do some sort of content production, come in heavy with the praise. The criticism can wait. Get from 0 to 1 first, and just really build up the team, because that's going to come through. Their confidence in themselves and in their company is all going to come through. So, really accentuate the positives. Obviously, if there's a major, if there's a legal issue, you've got to bring that up. But anything short of a legal issue is not a big deal. The internet has a short memory, right? For the most part. And so don't get too hung up on the little things. People are going to expect you to mess up. We're all people. And kind of going back to the earlier thread, we were talking about this authenticity that comes through when you make a mistake, when you leave the mistake in the edit. People notice that. We're all editors now. We all realize, oh, they could have removed that, or they could have shot that again, but they didn't. And what does that mean? Well, it means that they're comfortable with themselves, and they're okay with that. So, 0 to 1, get something out the door. And once you get to 50, I think 50 is a nice number, because I've been for like 2 months now, been doing like a bunch of interviews every week and putting them out there. And I'm still not even at 50 yet. And it feels like I've done a lot, but it's not a lot yet. And I feel like once you get to that certain number, whether it's 50 or 100, whatever you make it, then you can start kind of looking back and seeing, okay, hey, what shows did well? Maybe we want to do more of those. What guests did we have the most fun with? I mean, that's the other thing. Like, keep this fun. If it's not fun, you need to reanalyze what's going on.
Yeah, that you are a lot more aggressive than I was when I was in my podcast consulting career. I would say people, well, once you get to like 14, 15 episodes, you're probably hooked. Like you're probably okay. If I would have told people 50, they probably would have ran away from me. But I totally get it, and I totally understand it. How do you measure? This is more of like a technical question, because I know you're focused primarily on LinkedIn. That's where I see your videos popping up all the time. It's where I was watching Jake Goldman earlier this morning.
Yep.
How do you measure technically the success of the video on LinkedIn? So many of us are used to YouTube and the YouTube analytics and stuff like that. How do you do it on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I'm going to give away a secret, and it shouldn't be a secret. There is a really good app called Aware. The domain name is useaware.co. And I'm going to totally flub the founder of it right now, even though I'm following him on LinkedIn. He built this tool. It's a salesperson's tool for using LinkedIn. And the reason that I like it a lot more than using LinkedIn is, first of all, it strips everything away. It's content focused. So there's no ads. There's not a lot of craziness going on in there. And it's got a really nice dashboard, so you can track your metrics as far as what content's getting viewed, what content's getting engagement on. But then it also helps you engage more into LinkedIn. So it's, I think his name's Alex, sorry. His big focus is that when you're trying to use LinkedIn, it's a two-way street. You're putting content out there. That's important. You should shoot for maybe one post a day is what most people are saying. But really, you want to make sure you're engaging people on LinkedIn. And so it's got a huge component for commenting and replying and engaging people on there. And that's really how LinkedIn works best. And I know from my perspective is when people are leaving comments, I'm paying attention to those people and I'm engaging with them. So I useaware.co, absolutely indispensable tool if you want to be using LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. We'll make sure we link that up in the show notes. Yeah, I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised really, because when you think about the sheer scale of YouTube, it's a dangerous thing. And I say dangerous because I'm also very rooted in the open RSS podcasting world. And these days, like, podcast industry with air quotes following the money, it's so hard to track success of audio podcasts because it is fragmented, right? Like, just like we all have our WordPress websites, not everyone can see your traffic. You can't really understand, if you were like advertising stuff, you have to share those results. You can't do that in podcasting either because it's RSS feed. It's hosted anywhere and everywhere people can listen to it. So the podcast industry is pushing, they were pushing for Spotify for many years. Spotify couldn't do it because podcasters want, or podcast listeners and podcasters want, the flexibility of open distribution, right? And perfect example would be Joe Rogan, whether or not you like the content, but the idea was he was exclusive to listening on Spotify. They took him off of YouTube. And then Spotify tried that model of acquiring premium content and saying, okay, maybe we'll make money by getting all these listeners onto Spotify. That didn't work because the acquisition costs of the content they were buying. Ain't no way you're catching up with $10 a month or $14 a month for Spotify. So now it's back to the open distribution model, and they'll just sell ads on top of that, and that's their revenue stream. It's the open distribution model actually winning the day, although it kind of went under the radar in the podcast space. But the point that I'm getting to is a lot of folks are pushing for YouTube to win for podcasting these days, and it's just like, what? Don't you all realize what you're doing again? You're pushing onto one centralized platform that is video first, which is totally different than audio. Yeah, I know it's much more attractive and you can sell it better, but audio is far easier to produce and manage than video. Even today, video file sizes are still 10, 20 times the size of an audio file. And transitions and, the theater of the mind is a lot easier in audio than it is in video. So pushing for success on YouTube is a detriment to the podcasting space. Where I'm going with this is these other platforms, I'm surprised they haven't invested more in video. Like even Twitter, LinkedIn's starting to do it more, and even Instagram to a degree. I'm surprised we haven't seen a pure competitor to YouTube. I don't have a direct question here, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on like video versus like platforms and where creators should be concerned with where you put your content.
Yeah, digital sharecropping is a real issue. It has been something we've been talking about for 20 plus years now, and it's probably worse than it's ever been. The amount of people that are still blogging on their personal blog, and I'm just as guilty. I finally did put a personal post up for the first time in months yesterday or 2 days ago, but these companies have come in and they've created experiences that are so easy and so fluid that they've really blown away like the ability to just use WordPress and do your content there. I love YouTube. I have a premium subscription because I do not have time to watch ads.
Me too.
And it's right. It's totally worth it. I can download videos so I can watch them on the plane. It is really amazing. And I remember I was working at a CDN company in 2006 when Google bought YouTube for, I think it was $2.3 billion. And the whole internet was like, oh my God, Google's lost their mind. This is the dumbest move ever. And now you look back at it and that's chump change for, what is arguably now the largest streaming platform in the world. Forget the numbers that Netflix puts out. YouTube is ridiculous. As far as people not realizing that they're giving away their content, it's hard because video is really hard. Like you just said, video files are much larger. Self-hosting video, if you're going to do that, you then need to put in a player that can adapt to the user's internet connection and automatically adjust the bit rate. There's so much magic that happens when you watch a YouTube video. And so to compete with that is really hard. And then you've got, like, on my phone, the YouTube app is amazing. I can exit the app and go do other things and the video's still there and I can flick it out of the way and I'm still hearing it. I can download videos to it. It's really hard. I think the important thing is for creators is to stay focused on creating and learning your craft and getting really good at it and, going back and revising it. And then being aware that these platforms and these are out there and that they own you, right? I mean, if YouTube blocks you tomorrow, what are you going to do? Do you have a plan B? And so having a podcast on your own WordPress site is still the smartest business move by far that you can do. And so, yeah, I mean, I can pontificate on this forever.
So you're out in the world, you're creating content for Kinsta, you're talking to folks in the WordPress community. When you go back to the weekly, quarterly, monthly meetings at Kinsta, do they look at you and say, Roger, give us the pulse of what's happening in WordPress, or do you just get brushed away like I did? Like, you're just the podcaster here, we're not going to talk to you. No, I'm just kidding. How do you provide the feedback of all of this content that you create that actually helps Kinsta make a better product?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, I mean, I'm biased, right? I work at Kinsta, so I'm going to say nice things, but I will be very honest. I've worked at a lot of companies, and the thing that I love the most about this company is they listen to all of us, not just me. We have an industry channel in our Slack, and we talk about everything that's going on in there, and our executives are in there talking with us. As far as my specific position, I am incredibly fortunate that all of my bosses have seen something in me, believe in me, and trust me to, go out into the community, talk to the community, listen, gather all the feedback, and then I bring reports back. So especially after every WordCamp, I've always got a big report. But usually it's monthly, quarterly basis, if not daily. I'm, trying to highlight certain things that are coming up, and just really, again, trying to work with the team on all of this. And it's hard because sometimes there is a lot of noise and we have to filter out that noise. And I think having the experience I've had, having been through enough hosting companies and building sites and working with clients and seeing what works and what doesn't, I have a little bit of a filter in there. But at the end of the day, it's all humility and just realizing that I've got a dream job, and be really appreciative of that, and just try and do the best work that I can.
Fantastic stuff. Not the Roger Williams, but somewhere down the family tree, Roger Williams. You're going to be here in the Boston area, end of November, for the Boston WordPress meetup. I'll link that up in the show notes. Where else do you want folks to go to say thanks?
Oh, come find me on LinkedIn. That's where I am too much, almost. I need to filter out how often I'm on there. But yeah, come and say hi on LinkedIn, and I'd love to talk to you.
Fantastic stuff. Thanks for hanging out today. Don't forget, thewpminute.com, thewpminute.com/subscribe to stay connected. We'll see you in the next episode.